Why I love being a werewolf. Dear Scary Stories NYC. You know, I used to be just like you. Suit and tie, 9 to 5, always racing against the clock. Name is Jake, by the way, first names only here. I was your typical type A personality. Always pushing for the next big promotion, the next big deal. But let me tell you, that life, it's nothing compared to what I have now. It all started when I decided to leave the corporate world behind. I wanted to live off the grid, to be self-sufficient. I wanted to feel alive, not just exist. So I packed up my things and I moved to the wilderness. I learned to hunt, to fish, to survive. It was tough, but it was real. One night, during a hunting trip, I got bitten by what I thought was just a wolf. I was wrong. That bite, it changed me. I became something more, something primal. I became a werewolf. Let me tell you about how I became what I am now. And then I've got a lot more to tell you about what it's like to be me. So I was on a corporate retreat in the wilderness. A team-building exercise, they said. We were huddled around the campfire when I saw it. A four-legged creature of immense size and power. Its fur glistening under the moonlight. Its eyes glowing with an eerie, otherworldly light. It was a wolf. But not just any wolf. This one was different. Larger. More menacing. Before I could react, it lunged at me, its teeth sinking into my arm. The pain was excruciating, but it was over as quickly as it began. The creature disappeared into the night, leaving me with a wound that would change my life forever. The first changes were subtle. I found myself more alert, more in tune with my surroundings. My senses heightened. I could hear conversations from across the room, smell the faintest scents, and see clearly even in the darkest nights. But then came the transformation. It was a night of the full moon, and I could feel a strange energy coursing through my veins. My body convulsed, bones shifting, and muscles contorting. The pain was unbearable, like nothing I had ever experienced. But then it was over. I was standing on large padded canine feet, my body covered in fur, my senses even more heightened. Becoming a werewolf for the first time was both exciting and terrifying. The power I felt was intoxicating, the freedom of running through the woods, the strength in my new form. But it was also frightening, the loss of control, the primal instincts taking over. It was a stark reminder of the beast within me, a beast I had to learn to control. But let me tell you, this power, this transformation, it is not for everyone. It requires discipline, control, and a willingness to embrace the beast within yourself. It's only for the very best of the very best of the very, very best. Now, I know what you're thinking. Werewolves. They're monsters, right? But let me tell you, it's not like that. Not for me. I am still me. Just more. I'm stronger, faster, more in tune with nature. I can see in the dark. I can hear a pin drop from a mile away. I can smell any prey around me in the wind. It's like I've been given a second chance at life, a chance to really live. And the best part of it, I'm free. Free from the rat race, from the constant pressure to succeed, to be the best. I'm not a slave to the clock anymore. I live by my own rules. on my own terms. I hunt when I'm hungry. I sleep when I'm tired. And I run with the wind just because I can. So yeah, I'm a werewolf. And you know what? That's just the way I want it. First off, the physical abilities are off the charts. Strength, speed, agility, you name it. I can run faster than any human, lift heavier weights, and my reflexes are lightning quick. I can hear a mule fart in the next county, and my night vision is better than any goggles you can buy. Then there's the healing. I used to get sick all the time, always catching whatever bug was going around the office. And now I can heal from any injury or illness in just a matter of hours. It's like having a personal doctor on call 24/7. Well, actually it's like 70 to 100 times better than that. But it's not just the physical stuff. There's a mental aspect too. I'm more focused, more alert. I can process information faster, make decisions quicker. It's like my brain has been supercharged. And let's not forget the freedom. No more alarm clocks, no more deadlines, no more office politics. I can live life on my own terms, do what I want, when I want. It's liberating. Sure, there are challenges. The full moon can be a bit of a hassle. And there's the whole hunted by humans thing too. But honestly, the benefits far outweigh the drawbacks. I wouldn't give this up for the world. You know, my life used to be about racing against the clock. But now I'm in a completely different kind of race. A race against the moon. Against my own instincts. But let me tell you, this is the race I was born for. I remember it like it was yesterday. The first time one of my new canine instincts kicked in, and I felt compelled to chase a car down a highway in the night. I remember that the moon was full that night, casting long, eerie shadows on the highway. I was standing on the edge of the forest, my senses heightened, my heart pounding with a primal rhythm. I could hear the distant hum of an engine, growing louder with each passing second. Suddenly a vehicle zoomed past me, its headlights cutting through the darkness. It was a red pickup truck, the kind you'd see in a country music video. The scent of gasoline and rubber filled my nostrils, and something deep within me stirred. A primal urge, a canine instinct, told me to chase. I took off after that truck, my paws pounding against the asphalt. The wind whipped through my fur, carrying with it the scent of the open road and freedom. I could hear the roar of the engine, the hum of the tires against the road. It was a rush like nothing I'd ever felt before. Far better than any white powder I'd ever been offered in any boardroom. I kept up with the truck for a good few miles, my heart pounding with the thrill of the chase. But eventually I got tired, and it pulled away, leaving me panting on the side of the road. I wasn't disappointed, though. I was already catching my breath, and looking down the road for the next vehicle to chase. Since then, I've run idiotically after many vehicles, believe me. Most of them I can keep up with for miles before I start to run out of energy. But there was this one time. A sleek black sports car zoomed right past, and I never got close to catching up. I did give chase, but it was like trying to catch the wind. The expensive sports car left me in the dust, its taillights disappearing into the distance. Which leads to a logical question. How fast can I run when I'm the werewolf? Obviously I don't have a speedometer or anything, but I guess I can hit speeds of around 65 or 70 for short distance sprints, 50 or 55 for a couple or 3 miles max, or I can sorta hyper jog at 30 to 40 miles per hour for longer stretches as long as I don't go any faster than that. That's faster than most animals, but not quite as fast as that sports car. But hey, I'm a werewolf, I'm not a cheetah, and I only have memories of running on my hind legs. I don't remember ever becoming a four-legged werewolf. I've heard those can run much faster, for much longer than I can do it myself, and I would expect that to be the case. Being a werewolf isn't all howling at the moon and running through the woods, though, although there is plenty of that. There are challenges, to be sure. The hunger, for one. It's not just a physical hunger, but a primal one. A need to hunt, to chase, to feel the life of another creature in my hands. It's a hunger that no steak dinner at a five-star restaurant could ever satisfy. Then there's the transformation. It's not like in the movies, where it's over in a few seconds. This is a slow, painful process. Bones shifting, muscles tearing and reforming. But the pain reminds me of what I am, of the power that courses through my veins. And the adventures. Oh, the adventures. I've run with wolf packs in the Rockies, hunted deer in the forests of the Pacific Northwest, swam in the icy waters of the Arctic. I've seen things, done things that no human could ever dream of. I've felt the thrill of the hunt, the joy of the chase, the satisfaction of a successful kill. I've also felt the terror, the fear of being hunted, of being the prey. But that fear, it's electric. It's a reminder that I'm alive, truly alive, not just existing, like those dead faces I used to see on the bus to and from work. So yeah, being a werewolf has its challenges, but the rewards, the experiences, they're worth every bit of it. I wouldn't want to lose this life for anything. Not for all the money in the world. Not for all the security of a corporate job. Because this is living. I'm a werewolf survivalist. And let me tell you, it's a rush like no other. The power. You can get drunk on it if you aren't careful. I can feel it coursing through my body. A primal force that's as old as time itself. It's like I've been given a second chance at life. A chance to really live. I'm stronger, faster, more in tune with the world around me. I can smell the faintest scent on the wind. I can run for hours without tiring. I can leap over obstacles that would have once stopped me dead in my tracks. And the nights. Oh, the nights. They're no longer a time for rest, but a time for hunting, for exploring, for truly being awake for the first time ever. The moon is my guide. The stars are my companions. I can see in the dark as if it were day, and the world is a whole new place, under the glow of the moonlight. But it isn't just the physical changes, it's the mental ones too. I'm more focused. I'm more driven. I've always been a type A personality, always been striving for success. But now it's different. And now I'm not just surviving, I'm thriving. I'm not just living, I'm alive. I've already admitted there are challenges. There's the constant hunger, the need to keep my secret, the fear of losing control. But the rewards, they far outweigh the risks. I've seen things, done things, experienced things that I could never have as a human. Things you could never think of trying. So yeah, I'm a werewolf, and I wouldn't have it any other way. And now my life is dictated by the moon, not by a ticking timepiece. The power that comes with being a werewolf, it is life-altering. But it's nothing if you can master it. I remember the first time I transformed. The raw power coursing through my veins was overwhelming. I could hear the heartbeat of a rabbit half a mile away. I could smell the fear of a deer in the next county. But I was a slave to my instincts, a wild animal with no control. I realized then that power without control is chaos. So I started training, pushing my limits, learning to harness the beast within. It was a grueling process, filled with countless nights of frustration and failure. I realized then that power without control is chaos. So I started training, pushing my limits, learning to harness the beast inside myself. It was a grueling process, filled with countless nights of frustration and failure. But with each passing moon, I could feel myself getting stronger, more in tune with my new form. Take hunting, for instance. In the beginning, I would chase after anything that moved, often losing my prey in the process. But as I honed my skills, I learned to be patient, to wait for the right moment to strike. And now I can take down a buck in seconds using no weapons other than myself, a feat I never would have dreamed of as a human. Or consider my senses. At first, the onslaught of smells and sounds was disorienting. But as I learned to filter out the noise, I discovered a world beyond human comprehension. I can hear a whisper from a mile away. I can smell a single drop of blood in a lake. Mastering my power didn't just make me stronger. It made me more powerful. With each victory, each successful hunt, each new discovery, I could feel my abilities growing, evolving. It's a never-ending cycle, a constant push for greatness. And let me tell you, there's nothing more satisfying than that. You know, when I was ordinary like you, I never had a moment to breathe, to truly live. But that was before the bite, before the transformation, before I became different. Now I'm not just another cog in the machine. I'm not just another face in the crowd. And now I am a werewolf, a creature of the night, a being of power and strength. I'm unique, and let me tell you, there's nothing quite like it. Being a werewolf, it's not just about the physical changes, the heightened senses, the strength, the speed. It's also about the freedom, the liberation from the mundane, the escape from the ordinary. It's about being able to see the world in a way that no human ever could. It's about being able to experience life in its rawest, most primal form. And let me tell you, it's worth everything I've given up and then some. The power, the freedom, the uniqueness. It's like a drug. Once you've tasted it, once you've experienced it, there's no going back. You can't just go back to being another face in the crowd. You can't just go back to being normal. So yes, being a werewolf makes me different. It makes me unique. But more than that, it makes me superior. Because while the rest of the world is stuck in their cookie-cutter lives, I'm out here, living like a real person. And there's nothing quite like it. And now I'm a creature of the day and night, a werewolf survivalist. And let me tell you, it's a game changer. Before, I was always tired, always dragging. 8 hours of sleep never seemed enough. But now as a werewolf, I only need a couple or 3 hours of rest. It's like I've been given a whole new lease on life. I can do so much more with my time. For instance, I used to spend my days cooped up in an office, staring at a computer screen. Now I spend my days honing my survival skills, learning to live off the land. I become a master at tracking, hunting, and foraging. I've learned to read the signs of nature, to predict the weather, to navigate by the stars. And at night when I transform, my productivity doubles. My senses are heightened. My strength is amplified. I can cover vast distances in a single night, hunt down prey with ease, and protect my territory from any threats. Being a werewolf has made me more efficient, more focused. I've learned to prioritize, to make the most of every moment. I've learned to live in the present, to appreciate the beauty of the world around me. So while you're stuck in your cubicle, I'm out here, living my best life, and I couldn't be happier or more satisfied. The thrill of the hunt, the power coursing through my veins, it's unlike anything else. But it's not just that. It's about survival. As a werewolf, I have advantages that I never had as a human. My senses are heightened. My strength is unparalleled. And my speed is unmatched. I can track prey from miles away. I can take down the largest of beasts. I can outrun any danger. And as a werewolf, I don't need as much sleep as a human. This means I can spend more time hunting, gathering, and fortifying my shelter. I can work through the night, under the cover of darkness, when most predators are asleep. This has doubled my productivity and made me a more efficient survivalist. But let me tell you, being a werewolf is not for everyone. It requires discipline, control, and a certain level of ruthlessness. You have to be willing to embrace your primal instincts, to become one with the beast within. It's a path only for the very best of the very best of the very, very best. So if you're not ready to face the challenges and embrace the power, stick to your 9 to 5. If nobody's ever called you names like workaholic or overachiever or type A, then you probably are not werewolf material. If you aren't the type to burn the candle at both ends, then you probably won't find the lifestyle attractive or enjoyable. But if you strive for greatness in every living moment, if you eat Tony Robbins for breakfast and then blow up the world with your energy and enthusiasm every day, then you might enjoy the nearly endless power and focus that being a werewolf and living off the grid will grant you. But I have to say, it's perfectly alright if you don't want to join me in my adventurous life choices. Not everyone is a werewolf, and that's a good thing. After all, if everyone were the very best of the very, very best, then who, dear viewer, would us werewolves eat for lunch? Well, our funds was getting low in the banks, then Anna White sent us a super thanks. Please join me in thanking tonight's executive producer Anna White, who kindly sent us a super thanks to buy us some of that 99-cent bread that now costs $4. Hellhounds, up in Harlem. Dear Scary Stories NYC. Yo, Mr. Big Feet, I got a scary story for you that actually happened here in NYC. It took place a few years ago when I was doing some crime that it's too soon for me to admit to, if you know what I mean. The statues are still imitationing and all that, so I'm gonna have to be vague about parts of this. I can tell you that I learned that werewolfism or werewolfitis, or whatever you want to call it, can be caught like you catch a cold sometimes. And it can be given to you on purpose, too. That's the bad news. The good news is that the kind I caught is like a cold in other ways too, because it goes away by the next morning. At least it did with me. So I'm going to tell you about how that happened, that I caught the werewolf virus. Then I'm going to tell you this rumor I heard a few months back that turns out to be true. There is a way to bring the virus back once you have it inside you. What I'm trying to say is, if you want to become a werewolf again, right, there's a thing you can do to make that real. I can't tell you how to catch it in the first place, but I can tell you how to bring it back once you caught it. And I'll get to that later. First, let me catch you up by filling you in on previous episodes of GBD, Gangbanger Dogman in Color, brought to you by YouTube, home of the best and brightest. Ready? Let's hit it. Okay, listen up, fam. Let me tell you about the messed up stuff that went down after I got infected with this werewolf virus. It all started when my crew, who I'm gonna call the Harlem Hounds, had a beef with those punk-ass wolves from the Bronx. By the way, these are not our real gang names, you can get that right. Anyway, we were always at each other's throats, but this time was the time them MFers took it to a whole nother level. Or as my 8-year-old nephew says, they fucked around and found out. One night we were chilling in our turf, smoking some blunts and talking smack, when those wolves showed up out of nowhere. They had this shady dude with them, wearing a cloak and looking all sketchy. Turns out he was packing some serious werewolf virus. Before we knew it, they unleashed that virus on us, like some screwed up biological warfare. At first I laughed when he threw something on the ground and a puff of smoke went up in the air. I thought he was a stage magician, and he was going to disappear in the smoke. So I ran forward into it to stop him, you know? I stupidly breathed it in, not knowing I was breathing in an experimental werewolf virus. It hit me like a ton of bricks, man. My body started twitching. My skin was crawling, and I felt this intense burning sensation all over. I thought I was gonna die right then and there. But nah, that wasn't the end of it. Oh no, that was just the beginning. I could sense the moon as it rose higher in the sky. I mean, I could feel it behind me even when I wasn't looking at it. Then this uncontrollable rage started taking over me. My bones cracked. My muscles bulged. And I transformed into this freaking werewolf, standing tall on 2 legs. But like 2 monster legs, you get me? I couldn't believe what was happening. I was a monster and there was no turning back. My crew was freaking out because the same thing was happening to all of them too. They didn't know what to do. Some ran for their lives, while others tried to fight each other. They tore through each other like they were Swiss cheese. It was so stupid. Brother fighting brother. I realized they were all becoming werewolves, losing their minds, and reverting to being as stupid as dumb animals. They had no control over their own selves no more. They just fought each other while the wolves stood back and laughed at us. But not me. I could still think the same as ever. But now I had the power, man. I had the strength. I shimmied up a pipe and onto a roof. And then I was in the bird seat, looking down on the entire bunch of them. I saw the wolves walking away, and I decided to follow in my new werewolf form. It was not hard at all to keep up with them. I jumped from roof to roof, and when they crossed the street, I just ran across on a phone line on all fours. That wire wasn't really strong enough to hold my weight, so I just went faster. It was like a scene from a superhero movie, but not a recent one. It was like a scene from a good superhero movie, and I was the superhero. As the moonlight and light from apartment windows were the only things brightening up the dark alleyway below it all, up on that roof I could feel the transformation completing itself. My bones cracked and twisted. My muscles bulged, and fur sprouted from every inch of my body. I became a tall, scary werewolf, but unlike the mindless beast they expected me to be, I retained my human consciousness. With a superhero leap, I stepped off the roof, gaining momentum, as I fell 5 or 6 stories straight down. I landed hard on 3 of them mothers, and 2 of the 3 were out like a light already. That just left 5 more guys that I had to take down. Sounds like fun. Well, they were no match for me. Using my enhanced senses and agility, I dodged those big giant crackheads like it was nothing. I could hear how surprised they were as they realized they had underestimated me. I fought with precision, aiming to incapacitate rather than to kill, like Kato from the Green Hornet. I gotta admit though, I had a few tricks up my sleeve I never saw in any old Bruce Lee movie. That's 'cause Bruce Lee didn't have claws. But I did. I tore through the flesh of these mothers, rendering them helpless. The sound of bones breaking echoed through the night, as I disarmed them faster than they could pull a trigger. The wolves, once the predators, were now the prey. My prey. But in the middle of all this, the hooded man, the guy who had given them the werewolf virus, managed to slip away. He was cunning, I'll give him that. As much as I wanted to tear him apart, I knew I had to let him escape. He needed to spread the word of my power. to let the city know that there was a new alpha in town. The wolves had been duped by that hooded bloodclot into thinking the werewolf poison he was selling would turn us all into dumb beasts. But I kept my mind, and the virus only turned me into their worst nightmare. If they spread this out over the city, a certain amount of other people would react to it like me. Like, there would be a majority of people turning into hungry monsters, but then there would probably be like 50 or 100 of us that would have all the strength of the freaks. But we'd sit on top of our power, riding it, not letting it ride us. They hadn't counted on that. So I say let them do it. I wouldn't mind, right? It wouldn't make my world any better or worse anyhow. So after the fight, my adrenaline subsided and I reverted back to my human form. The scars of battle were all over my body, but I was still standing, and none of the guys I just fought could say that. But I had accomplished what I set out to do. The wolves had been defeated, and the city would tremble at the thought of crossing me. Well, at least people would be scared of the werewolf. There wouldn't hardly be nobody that would know it was me. They would just know that one werewolf stood up for all the people, and they would remember that part. And so, as I stood there, bloodied and victorious, I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. The streets of Harlem would never be the same again. The legend of the fierce yet merciful werewolf who took down the wolves, but allowed them all to live, was going to be repeated from Brooklyn to the Bronx, a warning to anyone stupid enough to challenge me. I was ready to fight everyone that night, but I woke up in the morning myself again, in human form both inside and out. That was the first morning I ever woke up feeling like I didn't want to do no more crimes. I still don't know why I changed my mind about everything, but I woke up that morning starting to think about other ways to start bringing some money in. Legal ways, you hear me? And that's when I started to do stuff on Amazon that I learned in this YouTube tutorial. Actually, it don't matter how I make a living these days. My point is that I woke up not wanting to be one of the bad guys anymore. And I started trying to cut most of the old guys from the past, who were still alive, out of my future. But I mean, I didn't move, and I still keep my ear to the ground, if you know what I'm saying. Nobody that survived that big werewolf rumble that night changed back to a werewolf again later on. And not the next night, not on the full moon, nothing. So that was what I was trying to say before when I was like, werewolfism is like getting a cold. I didn't mean that it makes you sneeze. I meant that it comes and it goes. At least the kind that they gave us. I never really expected it to come back, but a couple guys from that night were freaked out about it, calling me on the phone every day until the full moon. After a full month had passed, everyone got it that it was a one-time attack that they hit us with, and we figured that was the end of that. The pandemic hit, and then we all had other things to worry about besides werewolves. Let me tell you about this crazy thing that happened to my boy Rico just a few months back. So me and some of the boys was chilling on 125 and getting a shake, right? Just shooting the breeze and talking about old times. Out of nowhere, Rico starts feeling all weird and jittery. He's sweating buckets, and his eyes go all bloodshot. We're all looking at him like, what the hell, man? Next thing we know, Rico's body starts twitching and convulsing. It's like he's losing control, you know? And then boom, he transforms right in front of our eyes. This dude turns into a tall, menacing werewolf, standing on two legs, like some freaky monster out of a horror flick. We all started freaking out, trying to figure out what the hell just happened. Rico's howling and growling, tearing up everything in his path. It's like he's possessed by something ancient, unleashed from someplace down underneath hell. But here's the crazy part, my dude. We started putting the pieces together, trying to figure out what triggered this transformation. And you won't believe it. Rico had just finished eating some hot wings from Kennedy Fried Chicken on 125th Street, just north of Marcus Garvey Park. And get this, he washed it down with a chocolate shake from the Shake Shack across the street on the north side of 125. Turns out that combo was like a damn switch that turned on the werewolf virus in full force. It was like a curse, man. One minute Rico's just a regular dude, and the next he's a ferocious beast, tearing through the streets of Harlem. We couldn't believe our eyes, bro. It was like something out of a nightmare. And from that day on, we knew we had to be careful about what we ate and drank. 'Cause you never know when that damn werewolf virus gonna come back and haunt us, turning us into creatures of the night. So I don't know what is the combination of ingredients that makes this happen, but I saw it with my own eyes. And it made me miss the powerful feeling I had that time I got transformed into the monster. Just running across the rooftops like I was Batman or Spider-Man. Well, that made it worth it. And there was a lot more to that night which I kept thinking about. Maybe I needed to move to 125. Maybe I needed to eat hot wings and a chocolate shake every night, you know? Maybe the city needed me to step up and be their hero, right? I mean, I have read a lot of comic books, you can probably tell. So this past Halloween, last year in 2022, I decided to do it. I was gonna eat hot wings, cross the street and grab me a shake, and then that would be my Halloween costume. I mean, why not, right? So I did it, but things didn't go down the way I was thinking that they would. Okay, first I went over to Kennedy Fried Chicken, and I got me some hot wings. Them joints was fire, man. I could feel the heat building up inside me as I chowed down. After I finished the wings, I crossed the street to Shake Shack and I grabbed a chocolate shake. That thing was thick and creamy just the way I like it. As I slipped it down, I could feel a strange sensation coursing through my veins. It was like my body was changing, transforming into something wild. Suddenly my bones started cracking, and my skin felt like it was on fire. I looked down and saw my hands turning into massive paws, covered in dark fur. My clothes ripped apart as my body grew taller and more muscular. Before I knew it, I was standing there, a towering bipedal werewolf. And when I say bipedal, I'm trying to say that I stood up like a man, right? I wasn't down on the ground like a dog, because I was a bipedal werewolf, you see what I'm saying? The people on that street were freaking out, man. Some ran away screaming, while others stood frozen in fear. I could see the terror in their eyes. I was like something out of a horror movie. The kids was gathering closer though, because I think they thought it was a live ad for a new werewolf movie or something. But I was excited. This was exactly what I was hoping would happen. I embraced my new form and I let out a howl that echoed through the streets of Harlem. All them people scattered, leaving me alone in the darkness. It was a powerful feeling, knowing that I had become the thing that haunted their nightmares. Even on Halloween, I was still scarier than scary. I was once again the werewolf. As I prowled the streets, I could hear whispers and gasps from all the people around me. Some of them knew something was up, something dangerous. But most of the people, they just thought I had the best Halloween costume in Harlem that year. Little did they know I was just getting started. Halloween night 2022 was about to become a night they would never forget. The trouble is, I don't remember any of it. My plans to transform more often were wrecked, because my second time wasn't anything at all like my first. I didn't keep control when I did it fueled by fried chicken and a chocolate shake. I just transformed and then I went wild. I don't think I hurt anyone as far as I know, but then I wouldn't really know, would I? I woke up on a rooftop in Queens, so it must have been a good night, that's all I can say. I mean, I started off in Harlem, and that's in a different borough surrounded by wide rivers. Did I ride the subway while I was a werewolf? I mean, maybe I did, I just can't tell you. So I don't think that if I moved to 125 and ate hot wings with chocolate shakes every day, that I would turn into a superhero. I just think I'd get fat, and I'd forget everything that happened. I can already do that just by drinking 3 40s and smoking an 1/8 ounce. So I don't need the werewolf thing for that, you hear me? Anyway, that's the story covered better than Eyewitness News could do it. Whether you're in a good or a bad mood, you gotta say thanks to Ron Barracuda. Ron has been a channel member of ours for 3 straight years. Thanks, Ron, we really appreciate it, and we're very grateful to you for helping us stay on the internet. Ron is 3 months shy of our current record holder, Dave Rabbit, who has been a channel member of ours for 39 months straight. Thanks a lot, Dave. You are the greatest. By the way, I don't think that Dave Rabbit is actually a rabbit, just as I'm pretty sure that Ron is not a barracuda, but I am definitely a Bigfoot, and big feet can't survive without contributions from nice people like these 2 guys that we're thanking right here. Both of them get cool perks in return for supporting the channel. I was a hippie werewolf. Dear Scary Stories NYC. I have one of those old-time reminiscy type of stories for you. I can remember back to 1,000 years ago when I was a hippie and a werewolf at the same time. At least, my friends and I thought of ourselves as hippies, even though it was already the 70s when this took place. So maybe we were post-hippies, but I was definitely a werewolf. In fact, a few of us were, but it was just sort of a phase we were going through. For me, it lasted just the one summer, and a bit into the autumn. I remember that my friends were still making werewolf jokes to me at our Halloween party that year, but they already seemed out of date and over to me. I think I was back to being a full-time human by sometime in September. I might be a little off about that, as I'm also not 100% certain of the year. I still have one friend from back then, and she says this was 1972. And then my sister, who's 2 years younger than me, says it was 74, and I think it was 73. So it was around then, sometime, when this all went down. They say that if you can remember that era very clearly, then you probably weren't really alive then. It was after the Easter service at our church that I became a werewolf. The guy who bit me was a member of our church choir. I don't know who he caught it from, but he passed it on to me. The weirdest thing? Well, one of the weirdest things about it was that he wasn't a werewolf when I caught it from him. Or he didn't look like one. He just looked like himself, you know? So here's how it happened. We had a pastor with long hair who played guitar. He had his hair frizzed out in an afro like Jesus from Godspell, if you know what I mean. It was a nice day, so he led the congregation out onto the lawn between the church and the woods, and he led us in singing hymns out there with him on guitar. After it was over, this boy and I wandered off into the woods together alone. We started making out, and I gave him a hickey, which was my trademark in those days. If I liked a guy back then, I marked him, so that the other girls would know I had claimed him, see? It worked, too, and I only had to beat up one other girl the entire time I was growing up. I never learned how to keep my men from straying, but I had strategies early on to scare other women away from my guys. Anyway, there's one guy, he was cute, but he was overly aggressive, and he actually cut me by accident when he was trying to give me a return favor hickey, you know? That's how I caught werewolfism from a human, true story. To the guy's credit, he warned me that he was a werewolf. Unfortunately, I didn't believe a word of what he was telling me, until it was all far too late. So, I don't want to give the impression that my life revolved around the church, but I was a member of this hippie church, and I would go there on Sundays and holidays. It was a normal thing to do in those days, going to church. Not so much the hippie part, but the church part was a normal part of most people's lives. There isn't anything else about it in this story, though, I don't think. So, what happened next? Oh, right, I became a werewolf. I already was a werewolf as soon as that guy gave me that super hickey. But the next part of this story is me actually physically transforming in front of some of my friends. First, I started sweating profusely, and the others noticed I didn't look right. I felt the strangest I'd ever felt, and it was nothing like I'd ever felt before. I didn't feel well, but it wasn't like I had a fever. Actually, I probably did have a fever since I was sweating, but it wasn't that normal body achy kind of a feeling I get when I have a normal fever. This was something very different, and the hair growing out of my arms was the first thing I could see changing. The others were screaming about my face long before I got to a mirror, but my nose was elongating into a hairy dog's snout at the same time. I guess with me that was usually the first part to change, the nose and the snout. It's a major transformation of your face that involves remolding your cartilage dramatically. Maybe that's why I was sweating so much. When it's happening, it feels like your insides are melting and being remolded into new shapes. So maybe that is exactly what's happening. I wouldn't really know, even though it happened to me personally. I wish it had been studied by science all these years instead of being laughed at and derided. I don't know how this change could possibly work, but it did work, and it did transform me physically in front of my friends. While this was happening, one of my roommates was saying the name of that werewolf boy over and over again. She was saying that guy is the one who did this to me, and she was making me scared. He had told me I would become a werewolf, and I just thought he had a weird sense of humor. But now my roommate was saying that he told her the same thing. My friends got me to the woods and I ran off like the wild beast I had suddenly transformed into. I would be back in human form in my bed by the morning. But as for that night, I no longer existed. I was temporarily out of existence, replaced by this big humanoid bitch. I was literally a dog and a woman at the same time. And it's a very hard thing to describe to someone who hasn't lived through this kind of trauma personally. It was kind of a scandal since this was the manifestation of a venereal disease. But my small circle of friends were in on it from the start, and they helped me keep things under control for the 4 or 5 months until it left my system. And it was gone before October, or at least at the beginning of October. So that's not a short time, but certainly not a lifelong curse. I think the reason so few people know about werewolfism is because it's a venereal disease that nobody wants to admit to, or to go to see a doctor about. People keep it a secret until it goes away later in the year. At least that's what happened to me. I don't think this is the only kind of werewolf illness though, so maybe the whole lifetime curse thing from the movies is legitimate. I just wouldn't know. I do know that by the time I was at my worst, I had that guy who bit me telling me that he was over it already. That took a lot of the scariness out of it, knowing that it would be over eventually, and that I just had to find a way to get through this tough time. Without knowing that, I might have given up hope, to be honest. One of my grandchildren says he wants to be a werewolf when he's older, and I try to tell him the truth about it. I certainly wouldn't want him to become a werewolf. I would be very sad if that came to be. I wouldn't stop loving him, and I'd be there for him as much as it would be safe to be, to try to help him get over and past the illness. But I'm never going to tell him or you that being a werewolf is something to aspire to, or to attempt to become. Werewolves are stronger than humans, but that strength is not always under the best control. It's funny, right after I wrote that down, I was arguing against my own argument in my head. After all, there are certainly enough humans who are out of control as well, especially powerful ones. Why should I fear werewolves any more than I fear insane humans? Neither of them understand the proper use of their power. I suppose humans really are just as scary as werewolves, but I found myself most afraid of what I was gonna do when I was in the werewolf form. What act of violence would I perform that I could never atone for? What harm might I cause that I could never undo or make better? For instance, that summer I made life hell for one girl in my neighborhood. She wasn't even someone I disliked. It was just that she liked to go for strolls at night when I happened to be out on the prowl. One night I remember seeing her on her evening constitutional, and I darted through the darkness to reposition myself behind a bush further along on the path she was walking down. When the poor girl got up to where I was, I pounced out of the bushes, ambushing her and growling at her, with my claws aiming for her soft tissue. She screamed and ran, and it lit fires and rang bells inside of me. It felt so good to chase her, and so natural to be preparing to treat her as prey. It was a feeling of homecoming. It was like returning to proper form, even though I had never hunted in any way in my life. I had never even gone fishing, and yet the instinct to kill for survival had returned to me from somewhere, and I found myself nostalgic for sensations and yearnings that I had never even had before. I was an obnoxious hunter. I would never go in for the quick kill. I would tire my prey out first. I would make them run until they were exhausted. But that's also why I never killed anyone that year. No humans, I mean. They all got away from me because I was playing games instead of going in for the kill. And I wasn't always the one doing the chasing either. Like there was this one time when I got chased by a cop. I thought he was going to shoot me down. I didn't think I was going to survive that night. Let me tell you about it. Now, I was not in any place where a cop should have been bothered by me. What business did he have walking in the woods anyhow? What crime was happening there? I was dining on fine squirrel when the cop started shouting something and made me run away. I couldn't believe it that he was chasing me, and at first I was just going to climb a tree and wait him out. Then he fired a shot that whizzed past my ear, and I realized that I had no choice but to keep on the move, to keep trying to dodge him. If I climbed the tree, he might have me cornered, but if I kept moving in a broken field run, at least I was forcing him to make the perfect shot if he was going to bring me down. I could think like that when I was the werewolf, and I had the strength and agility to bounce all over the place, like a furry female Jackie Chan. That night I needed every bit of agility I could manage to keep a step ahead of the man in blue. I was finally able to escape into the darkness of the woods when the cop accidentally shot out a lantern on an old horse and buggy, making its way through the woods with some rich people on board. When the cop got caught up in being shouted at by some of the more influential personages in our state, I made my way deeper into that darkness, looking for somewhat less influential game to catch for dinner. But there were times when the whole werewolf thing kinda came in handy, to be honest. Like this time that my sister and I were sitting out in front of the house on the sidewalk, trying to cool off one hot summer night. This guy came along and sat down next to my sister. He was way too old for her, and also way too old to be sitting on the curb of a sidewalk in general, I thought. But I waited until my sister gave me the eye, and told me she was getting scared of him, before I did anything about it. The guy put his arm around her and tried to pull my sister closer to him. I turned toward him and I showed him my teeth, if you know what I mean. I sort of grew them in front of him while he looked. I could tell it was working when I saw the guy's eyelids open up so wide that I half expected his eyeballs to roll on out of there. He slid his arm back from her shoulder and moved sideways as he was standing up. It was almost like watching a film being projected backward, you know? It almost made me feel like laughing. The power I had in that moment. So a few of us who had gone to college together were renting a house in a certain town I won't name in western Pennsylvania. We were not directly on the forest, but when I would transform at night, I could usually cut through a few backyards and get to a local patch of woods with small game in it. Birds and so forth. By the stream there would often be frogs and occasionally fish, but usually very small ones. I felt constantly hungry, but I'd still feel full most of the next day. I had eaten so much in the woods the night before. I don't think that was real hunger. I think the canine version of me was just programmed to hunt, and to feel a desperate need about hunting that translated into me feeling that hunger pain in my belly. Either that or I really was hungry from the transformation. I know that changing back really took a lot out of me, and I would always need to at least sit down for a few minutes afterward, if not lie down for some sleep. It would make sense that changing into the werewolf would also be exhausting, and that exhaustion might manifest with me feeling hungry. I can't really tell for sure. I'm just going on sense memories, you know? Usually I had a bit of control about the transformations. I don't mean I could stop them once they started, but I could delay them long enough to trot over to the woods before the change got too far along. I could also trigger the change to come earlier, as in the case with that guy who was bothering my sister. When I knew it was going to happen soon, I could tell the others, and they would sometimes make suggestions to me. One time they tried locking me up in the basement, but I ended up scratching up the basement door so badly that the landlord demanded we buy him a new one and have it installed. He kept asking us how the door got torn up that way, and we kept saying we had no idea, and that we thought it always looked like that. It was a lie, but it was better than telling him I did it when I was a werewolf. He wouldn't have liked that answer any better anyhow. One time, we were watching The Partridge Family when I started feeling like I was going to change into the wolf. Now, we all love The Partridge Family because half of us had the hots for David Cassidy, and the other half felt the same about Susan Day, I think she was called. So I remember standing up in the back of the room, fidgeting all around, trying to slow the change down so that I could wait until I'd seen David Cassidy as Keith Partridge, singing the song they always had at the end of the episode. I didn't really think most of their tunes were very good, but I liked to watch him sing them anyhow. I couldn't make it through the last commercial break though, and I remember running outside to go to the woods. I went from having a Keith Partridge crush to wanting to crush a partridge and eat it for dinner. Once you start becoming the other person or creature, it builds like a tidal wave or a snowball rolling down a snowy hill, you know? It becomes overwhelming, and you crash into being a werewolf like a wave crashes on the shore. It was horrifying and it was exciting at the same time, like a lot of things in those days were. I definitely would not want to catch werewolfism again at my age, as I think it would exhaust my system in seconds. Now that I'm as old as I am, I think it would be fatal to ever catch it again. But back in those days, it really was not all that bad to be a hippie werewolf. Hi folks, it's me, Henry Lee Dogman, and no car can catch me because I am Dogman Fast. Now you can be too with these new Dogman Fast crew socks, available at the link in the description. See, there's a picture of me, looking very muscular, on the sides of the socks, running right along with you. Suitable for jogging, suitable for racing, but also just for standing or sitting, as they do keep your feet warm on those cold evenings coming soon. Dogman Fast crew socks, available right now from Scary Stories NYC. Use secret code DOGMAN23 at checkout to get 10% off your order. And now here is your old pal Bigfoot to let us know who tonight's executive producer is. Take it, Biggie. Wait, Henry, before you go, tonight's executive producer, Fraggy Dendron, has requested that you and I have an argument or something. Fraggy wants us to argue? What should we argue about? Yeah, I don't know. I asked her to write us a script or something. She never got back to me about it. Well, are we supposed to be angry at each other? Yeah, that's it. I don't really know. Like, what's our motivation? Okay, well, I don't know either. You know, this animation part takes a lot longer to produce than any of the rest of the show. If we don't actually have anything to say, I think we should just end the segment. Yeah, but Fraggie's really nice to us, and she doesn't make that many requests. So I don't see why you can't just cooperate and maybe crack some clever Dogman jokes or something. You know, to entertain the folks. What's a Dogman joke? You mean like a hairy Dogman joke? Well, I think she's looking for witty banter. From us? No, seriously, what do you think she wants? You know, if I had Dr. Death here, I bet he would be a lot funnier. And more charming than you're being. Oh, you think so, huh? Yes, I do. You think so? Well, yes, I do think so. Well, why don't you get Dr. Death to read the long outro I usually read for you, huh? Why do you do that if he's so much better than me? Oops. I guess he quit the show. Well, we can't continue without Henry, so I guess that means the series is over. This was the last episode, so I hope you enjoyed it. Just kidding. Here's Henry to explain the whoosy and the whatnot. Hank? Thanks, Biggie. And thanks to all of you for watching this far. If you liked it, please click like. If you'd like to see more of our work, please subscribe. And also click that bell icon if you'd like to be notified when we put out a new episode. To become an executive producer, you can donate to us through the thanks button under each of our videos or through our paypal.me/PeterBernard209 page. To receive cool perks like secret uncensored Dogman episodes far too wild to ever run on this channel, you can become a YouTube channel member by clicking the join button, or join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com. Joining either at the $3 a month level or above gets you access to our over 25 hours of secret uncensored Dogman stories available nowhere else. Do you have a scary story about Dogman or some other kind of high strangeness that happened to you? Let us know by emailing us at scarystoriesnyc@gmail.com or by leaving us a voicemail message at 804-LA-SCARY. You may need to call back on that one. It cuts off after, I think, 3 minutes. And if you don't want to do any of that stuff, thank you for simply watching to the end. Good night, and have a scary tomorrow.
Come back for more scary stories.